And so in the meantime, I would like to share about AMP by running through a quick presentation. I request you all to have a glance on the presentation as we wait on. Welcome to AMP Webtalk. AMP stands for Association of Muslim Professionals and is registered in India, USA, UK, and Australia as a non-profit organization. AMP has completed its 12 years of serving our community in the various fields such as education, employment, and empowerment. AMP has a vision to positively impact lives of 10 million people by the year 2030. To empower Muslims for the greater benefit of the society in general and nation as a whole is our mission. AMP's vision is to be a model Muslim community which is educationally advanced, socially progressive, culturally vibrant, politically influential, and economically dynamic. So what AMP has achieved in these 12 years is right in front of you in the slide. Please have a look at it. We got school development programs, and in this project, we conduct various useful lectures and educational sessions in the schools and colleges. We have employment assistance cell, where we organize job fairs and job drives. AMP has got its resource center, where we got more than 600 counselors who are helping students and youth in their career path. We also do awards in partnership with different companies and training partners. Beside all the above said achievements, AMP's presence today is in front of you. AMP got more than 100 active chapters. We are present in 25 states and 16 countries with more than 600 active members and volunteers. AMP's online presence is through various social media platforms where more than 125,000 professionals are connected to us. If you are willing to be a part of AMP and its community work, you can always join us at www.ampindia.org/joinamp. All right, so let's quickly move on to the session. And I see that a lot of people have already joined us. I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of AMP. I'm your host today. And my name is Humaira Kabir. I'm working as Operations Manager at AMP USA. Along with me, we have Mr. Mohammed Shansha Ansari, who's the President of the AMP USA from Columbus. I would like to introduce you all to the speaker of today's session, Mr. Shah Siddiqui Saab, who is the CEO of Reed Academy. Mr. Shah Saab is a career coach, training consultant, and a management faculty with more than 2 decades of experience in the area of management sciences. We also have with us Mr. Shehzad Muqaddam, who is Operations Manager at AMP India from Mumbai, and Mr. Saeed Saab, who is the Director of Technology at Swift e-learning services. I request Mr. Saeed Saab to talk about the LMS for a few minutes before we move ahead to the session. Over to you, Saeed Saab.
Thank you, Amira. Hello, everyone. This is Saeed here, and I'm the Director of Technology at Swift e-learning services. And on this, as most of you know, that there is a learning management system that is being provided along with this soft skills program that we have seen in phase 1 and also in the phase 2. So I've been getting a lot of queries, and I wanted to quickly address them. And even after the webinar, I would again address the queries whatever we get on learning management system. So, but before I address this query, I'll quickly share my screen and show you what exactly is the learning management system all about. So with every module that you are attending, you get access to this learning management system. We will give you the link to sign up in the chat window frequently, and once you sign up, okay, you get access to this dashboard. And as you can see, there is one course here, communication strategies. The first course, business writing, was already completed on in the last week itself, so you will not be able to access any of the components here. And there is this communication strategies course that is an ongoing course right now, and whatever be the reading material that was provided by Shah Saab, that we have already uploaded here. So once you click on that, you would get access to this learning path, and you see that there is an introduction first, And then when you click on this e-learning course, you get access to the e-module. And then there are different worksheets here: worksheet 1, worksheet 2, pre-assessment document that is like a homework to you. And today we have added one assessment questions module. So there are 25 questions under this module, and you're supposed to finish off all these 25 questions for your certification purpose. So you would be getting a certificate once all the webinars are complete, and this is a mandatory requirement for you to complete the assessment questions. So there are like 25 questions in this assessment criteria here. So just click on take assessment, and then you should be able to take all the 25 questions. So there are two queries I would quickly address. One is people are saying that even after they complete the course, still the status is showing as incomplete in the dashboard. So all these courses, all these modules, whatever is in the learning path, you will have to finish them all one by one. Okay, meaning you should not leave even a single slide unattended. So you got to make sure that you are attending all these slides. Only then the status will be marked as completed here. Okay, and also the assessment is mandatory. But even if you don't complete the course, but if you complete the assessment, that is enough for the certification. So even if it is showing as incomplete, so that should not stop you from getting the certificate. So this is one of the important concern that I wanted to address, because I've been getting a lot of queries around it. Okay, so I'll be available throughout the session. If there are any technical questions, I'll handle from there. Thank you so much. Over to you, Shazad.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. Your voice is perfect.
Okay. Let me also have the access to share. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of AMP, Swift, and Read Academy, I welcome you all once again. I appreciate you logging in at this hour towards our series, Soft Skills. We started our journey this phase 2 weeks ago, starting the business communication and writing conversation skills. And we continue our journey towards the last leg, which is today, further on communication strategies. So we will try to wrap up our communication strategies, which has been done pretty much in detail, as you all can see, and a sequel to your business writing and communication and conversation skills. So as a catch-up, we have covered the basic tools required to be an effective communicator. And we started out with some basic skills, and then emphasis was laid on just not on the words, the spoken, what you hear, but also the paraverbal, your gestures, your nodding. And then we looked at how the non-verbal communication is also important. With that, we covered, the first part of communication. We would move on to some advanced communication skills today. And just so you know, this is in accordance with our theme that we have been following in our series, soft skills series, and connecting it with the last session. So the topics that you are going through are in line, following a very simple and progressive theme, taking you exponentially towards the skills that are required in today's business world. So we have these topics designed and some of the slides customized specifically based on your queries and your requirements in this session, in accordance with the management style that we foresee that keeps us bound with the corporate culture. So with that, we had our basic modules on time, stress, and if you all remember, emotional intelligence. So we'll try to connect with the topic that we have today as we wrap up communication strategies and link it with our previous modules, very important topics of the soft skills area. So today we'll look at some advanced communication skills that are required. And this starts out with the basic listening skills. So we turn our tables today, and look at the flip side of our hearing or of our communication that we have been, um, trying to look into by being a good listener as opposed to a person who was just hearing words. So with that, let's start out with our slides, and also keep in mind the basic topics that we had. If you do have your writing journal handy that you all have been making notes and taking notes, I would like for you all to keep it handy and connect with the topics that you had, um, you know, that you had made a note of it. And as a reminder, you were given a pre-assignment activity. I wanted you all to recall a situation where a lack of communication in you or your inability to speak at the right time brought about a loss into your lifestyle. So with that pre-assignment in mind, I'm hoping that you're able to check off a few things that we did last Monday, and then complete the aspect of checking that out towards the end of this session, which is today. So keep that pre-assignment in mind as we move ahead and see how you could have handled it better with especially some of the communication topics which are classified as advanced skills. And these usually connect with your previous module that we talked about how an empathetic person will handle. And most importantly, your required self-awareness, which is a part of your emotional intelligence module. So pre-assignment is to be um, followed, and as well as our strategy toward business communication, conversation, and writing remains the same. I want you all to also have that in mind, where you would drop everything to start speaking. And then this completes our package towards business communication, writing, and conversation. So as you see on the slide, I have um, I've started the presentation, the slides. As you all can see, the topic for today is active listening. So we'll try to see what is the difference between hearing and listening, okay? And in business communication, what we have been doing so far was that hearing or listening, or is listening of value to us? We seems to be listening everything that comes our way. But this is where we really have to be careful about. When it comes to communication, when it comes to effective communication, when it comes to being an effective listener and being able to hear what is being said, then you have to be an active listener. So hearing is something that comes your way. Your body and your mind adapts, takes what you hear and tries to make sense. Now this could be verbal, that you're hearing the voice, and it could also be the noises that's coming your way. Okay, so if there is a big bang, then you know what it is. Okay, so although you're preoccupied, but your mind tells you what it is. But to be an effective communicator, you have to be an effective listener. Okay, so you move from hearing, which is a passive activity, to listening, which is more of an active activity. So this is how you would differentiate. And then you have to be, actively listening to effectively be listening, and then to actually understand or actually listen to what is being said. So this is the difference between listening. And then from what we have seen in the past, you have to be a good listener. And when you are in a conversation, you are not to speak and to listen. So it's given as an 80-20 rule, where you would listen 80% of the time and talk. Okay. And then when you talk for a reason, not just for the sake of talking. So these are the topics that we would cover. And I'm emphasizing on being an active listener for a conversation that you are trying to initiate, or a business statement that you're hearing. And this takes you all the way towards advanced communication skills. So everything that you learn, are or have been learning in this module would be required in your advanced communication skills, where you would be running a conversation. So take it as an exercise where we had some rules in the past how to speak, for example, the STAR acronym. And then the same way we'll follow some more rules to be an active listener while conversing, while taking up a communication. So what does active listening entail? This is listening and attentively, okay? And then while you're listening, you would respond non-verbally with a question or paraphrasing. Now, to continue your listening exercise, you do have to remember that your mind will will distract you from the rules that are to be followed in listening. Like one verbal rule is to give a feedback, to give a reply verbally or non-verbally. And then the second rule is to ask a question. So your mind would be working on what questions are to be asked, okay? Now this becomes a barrier to your communication. You do have to understand when you're listening, you just have to listen and not worry about asking questions. Why? Because you would only paraphrase. You would paraphrase a sentence that you have learned, not just for the sake of paraphrasing and not just copying the entire statement like a parrot, but trying to say that in your own words so that you have a complete comprehension. The statement is comprehending. So you would paraphrase it in your own words to make sure that you are understanding it and to make sure that you get additional information and to make sure that the source, the sender, or the person who's speaking will have interest in you. So these are basically the rules you would follow. So number one, you have to respond non-verbally, okay, and then be paraphrasing, which means that you would be saying that, in other words, what this means is this, this, this. So this is how you would have a complete understanding of the conversation. Now, from a business standpoint, you have to understand that, being an active listener will make sense from a management standpoint, will make you a leader because you are doing nothing but actively listening. Now, in a business conversation, what the source is trying to understand is how much of an information you're getting from what you read or what you listen. So this is, aspect of business where you are assessed or you are gauged by being an active listener. So when your supervisor or your colleague or your team leader is talking to you about a project, what he's trying to understand is how much you're getting. And by appropriately responding to his message, and then either verbally or non-verbally or by paraphrasing, and then there are some other tricks that we will learn towards the end of the conversation, you are implying that you are on the same page. You are being taken seriously by what is being said and what is being reacted. So this is the purpose of this is the benefit of being an active listener. So you move from being passive to being active, and then you move from being from hearing to actively listening. Okay, so you are actually comprehending, you actually understanding, and then effectively understanding what is being said. So this is how it would start out. While listening, you can be sending good signals to others. If this is a face-to-face communication, you would follow the rule as giving a non-verbal signal, a quasi-verbal signal, or a verbal signal. You all know the importance of non-verbal signal. That's why it's stated here as first. Why is non-verbal first? Why is it more important for you to use your language, your body language, your gestures, or your expressions? This is based on the theory we talked about in silent message, where more than 50% of the communication should be or is nonverbal. Now, we may not agree to the study that we talked about yesterday. However, this is only to imply that your attention should not be relying totally on words or spoken words, because in most cases that's what is given. And then if you're looking at something else, not having an eye contact, if you're having wrong gesture, or if you're trying to do something, then that's a part of nonverbal, and that makes the communication less effective or at its lowest level. So nonverbal is important. That's the sign you send to the source, the center, by giving out your gestures. Quasi-verbal is making half sounds like It's always also okay to say okay during a conversation. And then if it's a telephonic conversation, then you definitely have no room for nonverbal, okay? And then you only have room for verbal and quasi-verbal. So make sure that during your telephonic conversation, as there was a question, that you are also giving out this quasi-verbal, or definitely giving out the quasi-verbal signs as aha, and you can say okay if you want a short so that it's not interrupted. The check for the barriers is you don't want the source to be repeating the sentence or saying hello, are you there? So these are the signals to be given while being a passive listener. All right. There might be quite a few things that you can read on being an active listener, but this is a summary version where I'm going to read out if this is not big enough. To be an active listener, you have to be present, of course, listening, eye contact. You have to respond appropriately, use your body language, and in the end, come with questions. This is towards the end of the conversation, and we have one module on asking questions. So the end result of this module of understanding communication strategies is for you to be able to initiate a conversation. Let it be a business conversation or a non-business, a social. Both are valuable. In fact, you would work more on social as opposed to business because social involves a different terminology. And you would start out with your small talk and move on with the level that we will be talking about and continue on the conversation till you get to a level where you are be discussing, a lot of personal, sharing some personal views as well. So that's about being an active listener. Let's look at this video.
Brian, Christian, and Jessica were talking about better ways to communicate around the office. They each had their own suggestions and frequently interrupted each other. They had been talking for about an hour without any clear solutions when Brian suggested they pay attention to the 7 things they could do to listen better and ease their own communication issues. Christian and Jessica agreed, and all 3 colleagues aimed to spend 90% of their time listening and only 10% of their time talking. This sped up their brainstorming session and allowed them to narrow down their options for better communication methods in the office, such as memos. The colleagues were pleased with their progress and able to create a better environment at work.
All right. Here, this was something on listening, but it said 90%. So during a conversation, 90% of the time you are to listen. Okay. Now, this is not to be confused with the study we talked where verbal communication is 50%. These are 2 different things. When you are talking, when you're listening, 90% of the time, try to listen. Of course, you need to respond back. That's not to be confused with your verbal. And then when it comes to communication, verbal is important because it entails 50% of a conversation. So try to remember the numbers here, as it remains a numbers game. So that's about listening skills. And we're going to skip this and take a look at asking questions. This is towards the end of the conversation. There were some queries too with regards to asking questions. So you do have to understand that asking questions is important, but it's not just for the sake of asking questions. When you're hearing or when you're in a meeting, when you're in especially when you're in your face-to-face meeting, people try to make notes of the meeting. Not just the person who's supposed to be recording the minutes, but also everyone who's attending the meeting are making notes. Now, this is just to imply that the person is actually trying to understand or trying to focus. No, but when you're writing, you're distracting unless there is a reason for you to make notes. And then if you're writing or making notes in a meeting or in a conversational session where everyone's talking, then you're trying to imply or show that you're actually interested in the meeting. So this is, not just to show, but to ask any questions if you may have. So there's one way of, attending a business conversation where people are seriously writing. Some people are used to writing, which is fine. But if you're doing or making note just for the sake of, implying that you are attentive, you're listening, then, you're missing a lot of points. So let's look at some scenarios as to how and when you would ask questions. Okay, the questions, as you all know, is of 2 types. One is an open question, and the second one is a closed question. Open question, explores, what is going on. So obviously open questions have some root words who are the W's that we always use. So the purpose of an open question is to explore. It's like going hunting where you don't know what you will catch. So once, if it's a matter of initiating a conversation, then you would start out with these questions. But this is after the small talk. But the purpose of this question is to gather information. The opposite of open questions is closed questions, okay, which will be only be responded by answer of yes or no. They usually end the conversation, but once again, after getting the information that you need, which are only served by the closed questions, open questions, you can flip back with an open question. So this is just so you know, when you question somebody in a casual conversation, you have to make sure that it's appropriate. And there are some rules here to be followed, being aware and being in control and being able to judge, known as the frame of reference, where you wouldn't just question somebody like saying, we have where here, where are you from? That's the wrong question. So I don't have to say it, but these are the ways you would classify it, and you would, continue on your conversation or get into asking questions. So after the open, we have close. This limits the answer to yes or no. Tend to shut down conversation. Is this a good way? Well, this is only required when you need to get specific information. So if the answer is, not clear, you need to get to know in the form of a yes or no, then this is when you will pose a closed question. An example of a closed question is it 5 o'clock yet? What time are you coming? Anything, something similar to that. And then we have probing questions. These are very important from a business standpoint, from a business communication, from a business perspective, because you need to have clarifications. If this is about a project, a new project, and this is about how to maybe, install, a new application, which does some very critical and regulatory work relating to, for example, the banking sector. You need to know how much balance is required in everybody's account, or the central bank is asking about what the balance of each bank is. Some very highly sensitive and critical infra-related systems. Then you need to have better qualifications about the meeting, about the project. And these are usually long meetings. So there you would be having your writing journal, you making notes. So you would start out with clarification. So as you move on, you would make clarification. And in this case, you have to be, coming up with your writing aspect of the session, the business writing. So obviously you need notes here, you need clarification, you need, the details, the numbers, and then the terms, the new terms, the business terms. So for that, you need to be asking probing questions. And these are for clarifications, completeness and correctness, determining relevance, drilling down questions, and summarizing. Now, you can do a lot of reading about each questions. I have it here, in bullets. Completeness is correctness is very important, because this is a barrier to your conversation, barrier to your communication. Because if your listening aspect is not complete and the communication is not correct, then you would come up with two other barriers. Okay, there are a lot of barriers in communication. The first barrier would be assuming, assuming that this is done. And then the other barrier would be to know that, I can move on. So you don't want to be assuming something. That is why you need to have questions which talk about completeness and correctness. All right, the third one is determining relevance. Any question that you have would have to be relevant. So there might be topics relating to different aspects of the project. So you would ask, how is this relevant to that part of the project? So this is once again, a probing question that you have to know. Drilling down questions is trying to get or extract information. As to, you can say that, how is that possible? Okay, so you're trying to get some information which may not be given. Sometimes it's intentionally not given. Sometimes the information is not clear. On new projects, the delegation is done by a team leader who himself is learning, okay? Because the application is foreign. It was, the business has outsourced the application. So it comes from a different country, from a different area, from a different developer who was a very specialized solutions provider. So this is all, this is all the information that you have. And for most of you who are in the IT sector, you know how much gray the area is from recruitment all the way till delivery. So your drilling down questions are very important to continue your communication and to be an effective listener when it comes to your project work. And then lastly, you would summarize. This is very important. So if the meeting is due to end, regardless of how many people are in the meeting or how many members are in the communication part or in the business conversation that you're having as a meeting or just as a casual stand-up session or a webinar, a two-way interactive call that you're making. So be sure to summarize everything that you had in your mind, that you have heard, that you have listened, and that you have written down in a complete manner, which means that everything that was from the beginning of the session till the end would have to be summarized by you. This is the way of how you would recap in your mind, and this is how you would try to understand for your own self that you have had an effective communication. And this is by no reason a way to imply that you are listening for the sake of listening, okay? So this is, the purpose of having probing questions after you become an effective listener. So I hope this part is clear. It was much information, but I just have it in bullet points here. But you should be able to build on it, listening to the video or reading the material that we have. All right, let's move on. All right, there was a question about interviewing skills, I think. So I made these are customized just for you all, as to how you would interview someone as well as be interviewed. This is in person as well as in, live in person or on the telephone. So there are some aspects of asking questions, holding on to a conversation, especially when it comes to an interviewing skill. Now, first of all, if it's a telephonic conversation, you do have to know that, it might be a little bit difficult because there is the absence of nonverbal, okay? And the one aspect of telephonic conversation or interview is the lull, okay? So you don't want to have a silent, face even for a few seconds. So you can bank on it or you can try to avoid it. So during your session, whether it's an interviewing or casual conversation or just a business meeting, make sure that you once again start out with the small talk, okay? Never jump on to the subject. This is true even for your writing aspect, whether it's a message that you're writing to your team or a simple WhatsApp message that you're sending relating to business. So you always start with a small talk. When you're writing an email, you don't write how's the weather out there. Or when you are talking to somebody, and if it's a different location, you can say, how's the weather like over there? Or something relating to, the trend, in the business, or something relating to the organizational culture, or something relating to the free lunch that you guys have every Thursday, or the free popcorn, just giving you a simple example. So even the most extroverted person, okay, I'm not saying if you are an introvert, even if you are an extrovert, you will know that holding on to a good conversation does not come easy. It's many, many years of work. So if you are not able to do it, you're about doing okay. And if you're working on it, you will get to it. And it will take a number of years, especially if you are trying to build your language skills, your conversation skills, your writing skills, and your, communication skill. So conversation is towards the end, after everything that you have learned. So I have 5 points here, how you would do. Every session, whether it's live or online, whether it's a presentation or, something that you have to act out, would have to be prepared well. Good interviews always study up on their subject's background. So you have to make sure that you are prepared well for the job, for the position, and for the person. So if you are the interviewer, you would research about the person if you can. And if you are the interviewee, you would research not about just on on the interview, but also on the company. Okay, then the best way to do it about the company is to ask for an annual report. I don't know how much it's available, but in some parts of the world, an annual report comes to you free. Okay, and that gives you all the prime numbers that you need and to have an idea. And most important, to come up with the questions that you need to have, that you need to come up with towards the end of the session. All right, in bold, I have it written here, match the partner's mood, energy, level, language, and body language. This is in person. So I'm sure you all have an idea how you would be matching the mood. Okay, there are some tips that will follow, known as precipitating factor or precipitators, where you have to get an idea about how positive or how negative, things are. And it's common to say, hope you're having a good day or have a good day, because this impacts your business. This impacts the communication that you will be in during the day. And if you have been having a negative day, energy, level, language, then you have to, be able to adapt to the negative and not be able to absorb it, because the person who's at your receiving end will have to understand this and be able to match the mood, energy, and the language. Um, so, there are no interviews that is known as a standard interview or one size, for all, one size fit all. They always are flexible. They always are customized differently. Practice flexible listening. Okay, this is once again to be adept at listening, not just to what is being spoken, not just to the quasi-verbal statements, and not just to the body language that you have. So you have to be able to listen to what is being said, listen to the words, and listen to what's around the words when it comes to communication, verbal communication. So these are the things that will tell you how to continue and how to be positive in a communication. So the Amberbian study, the silent message, is here to emphasize that not just to focus on words, because 50% of the communication is nonverbal, or more than 50%. So you change subjects as the communication, the conversation goes. And that's what we mean by flexible. And if you think there is one topic that's going to hit, or that's going to have a negative impact, or a bad, initiation that you did, or a bad question that you have initiated, then you would swiftly jump on to the next topic. So here you would use the closed or the open question. This will help you. And then in most cases, professionally, make sure your questions are off the cuff, which means that these are spontaneous. These are not prepared, something that you haven't memorized. So make it look like it's spontaneous and try to, ask or answer a question as they would come. So this is about flexible. Activate the power of pause. Now, I talked about lull earlier, and then this is a good, this is, I said, is not to be stuck with on a verbal communication, but sometimes it could also act to your advantage. So it's okay to take a pause and think of it and go slow. And if there is a subject that's holding, the power of silence will break it down. Okay. And then the power of silence is also connected with your emotional awareness. Okay. Your personality as an empath, because you would be able to have some patience, and a person at the other end would have to be able to harness the skills, which is sometimes you have to be able to hold on to the silence and not jump to it. So if you can be silent for a while, then you are being a very strong listener emotionally. And you will feel the difference when there is a lull for more than 5 seconds, how the other person will jump into something, not so relevant. All right, so the power of pause or the power of lull. Curiosity. Okay, this is related to epistemologies. If you all remember um, from our early modules, the knowledge of knowing, the philosophy of, or the branch of science that deals with the knowledge of knowing. This always comes in our strategic systems approach. We believe in three things. Number one is epistemologies, okay, the language of knowing. And number two was the soft method that we have been following, the soft skills. And the last one was sustainable development. So without these three things, our systems approach is not complete. So regardless of what module you're studying, we always believe in a holistic, systemic, as opposed to a systematic, and a soft method that builds on nothing but curiosity. So by curiosity, I mean that you believe in epistemologies. Try to learn everything that you can. Try to read whatever comes your way. You doesn't have to stick to technical, okay, or business. And then a lot of time people are used to technical and business and they leave the social area, which is also very important. So for your writing skills, you also be able to adapt to enjoying the social subject, the social area. So this is all, your personality building, and it comes, heavily when we talk about communication and business writing skills. So curiosity is your own curiosity. The way you want to build is up to you, okay? But you will delve into ideas or area that will grab your interest. All right, questioning. I have the slide. As you can see, is the Dale Carnegie approach on how to understand communication. This is an off-track slide, but I brought it in when I ran into it. And most of you know Dale Carnegie by the institutes that they run these days all over the world. But historically, Dale Carnegie started with just one book in the 1960s or the 70s. The name is here, How to Win Friends and Influence People. This was a breakthrough. This was a major success. And in those days where we didn't have even the television or any method of communication other than letter writing, this was a success story for people in business. This is how they became very successful in business. So I just want to see how this book, if you haven't read it, you should summarize this, being an effective communicator. One, it says be interested in people. Number two is smile. And remember the person's name, be a good listener. Talk in terms of his other interests and make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. As you can see, these are simple terms and these are nothing but the topics that we have dealt with and that we will be dealing with in the past, and mostly relate to your emotions, your emotional awareness, your emotional assessment, and your self-control. The last one is, very easy, as you all know. It's a common mistake that we do, although we all know it. So your attitude, your behavior, and your ego is what has to be in control. Here, when there is a communication between two business professionals, or any two individuals, you have to understand that each individual is trying to talk about his story, how his story is more important and how his story has been successful and how he was able to close the deal or how he was able to, kill the part. So this is about making ourselves feel good and making ourselves, important. And if you can understand this part and take a approach where you would give the person a chance to talk about himself by just being a listener and 90% of the time, then you have practiced the ego. You have taken care of the situation where your emotions are in control. And this is the purpose of, our own, this is the purpose of being emotionally intelligent. So ego suspension is what it said, and this is the type of curiosity that you have to build on to connect with the other individual. So those were the tips. And to add to the last slide, I have two terms here: ego suspension and information compulsion. So don't try to give out information. This is the hallmark of great leaders. If you can hold on to the information that you have, then you are going to be a successful leader. Then you are going to avoid yourself getting into conflicts. Then you're going to avoid yourself getting into trouble. And the culprits who always chase the legal system are the ones who always hold on to the information. They don't like to boast about their achievements or their robberies. Okay, this is how they stay away from trouble. So this is just a tip for you all to understand how important information compulsion is. It's an art of giving out information that so much is required and so much is to be said.
Juan, Jillian, and Andrew were staying late at work to figure out a solution for the problem with their wage roster. The table was scattered with papers, and the trio had spent the entire day trying to brainstorm. Finally, Juan came up with an idea and tried to articulate it to the others. However, neither Jillian nor Andrew could quite grasp the bigger picture of his suggested format. Andrew suggested they use probing questions to figure out more about Juan's idea, and Jillian and Juan agreed. Andrew and Jillian posed several probing and open questions which allowed them to discover more about Juan's suggested solution. In the end, they agreed with what he had to say and happily clocked off work with a solution to be implemented the following day.
All right, that was on probing
Juan,
questions.
Jillian, and
These are short videos just so you pay attention to the case in the module, in the study guide. There are cases in the study guide that you can better understand with this video. Since we don't have the time to read it, I have these videos inserted. However, remember that the real life cases is what you need to read. Okay, the best way to understand real life cases is to get those real life cases, and the best part is those are available in the on the internet. Harvard Business Review is the best place to get very get very easy insight to these real life business cases. This will also help you with your reading skills. These are long cases. This will help you every way. As you all know, reading is what we believe on. We started on it. All right, so the next topic is appreciative inquiry. This is a very important topic. This is actually a one-day workshop that I do. And we can talk about it all day, but I just want to bring it here so you have an idea what appreciative inquiry is. Okay, you may not have heard about it because it's not a very common branch of management science, but this is just as effective a change catalyst as any other. Historically, if you go back into the world of business, how it evolved in the 1960s and 70s, how we came up with different subspecialties within the branch of management scientists and the management sciences, and those top big companies from Anderson Consulting to, can't even remember the names now. Anderson Consulting is no more, it became somebody else. And Frost, and I'm trying to think. But anyway, those companies came up with their own techniques to manage change and to bring about change. So this was all about change management. Business process re-engineering, if you all remember, this was a great, a specialized field, and how it evolved. And there were areas like one branch of science or one technique was popular in the Europe, while the other one was mostly in the Americas, and some other techniques in Asia. So appreciative inquiry remains one technique that has not been tapped, but that has brought about great results in providing management solutions. So if you haven't heard about it, let's take a look at what it is, okay? You can call it AI, not to be confused with EI or EQ, but it's worth it. So when there was a problem, or when the sales were down, when the production was down, or when the turnover was high, we had all these top-notch consultants come in to analyze the situation and to bring about the change, and then to increase the productivity efficiency and whatnot. So in mostly traditional modules, they focused on what is wrong and how they could fix it. And here in appreciative inquiry, what we focus on is what is right, okay, and how we can bring it about, make it better. So these are two words, appreciative and inquiry. Appreciate, you all know, is a common word. We use it, we try to use it every day. And appreciate is something that we give a high value to, that we give a high regard for, okay? And inquiry is asking questions. So appreciative inquiry is building on a questionnaire on something that's already working good, okay? This is how it works. And this is, don't underestimate, this is a very strong field, although it's not so prevalent in the business world. So here what we do is seek information, what we value, and detect the value through questions, okay? And I have some additional information on AI. This can be a radical, thinking, a radical change. Although in the past, all the processes that we were implementing were also radical. But this is more of a radical because it doesn't focus on the error. This focuses on the things that are going right, and that is to be built on. Okay, so this is a huge, departure from benchmarking, from the standard practices, from the norms that we have, and mostly all the softwares that you have in the market are based on the benchmarking processes, are based on the processes that have been laid out in the past. So you pick up any application for any part of any function of the business, whether it's marketing, whether it's finance, production, or HR, they're always based on processes. So AI takes a radical approach, and then this is about how successful people are doing in different areas of the business, okay? And how they are brought in as a team, and how they will go on questioning the beneficiary, and how they will build on these questions, okay? And they will dream, and they will discover, and then they will bring about these practices. So, this is what AE about. If it's not clear, then you should look into it. But I want to say one thing, that AI remains a virgin field. It's a very, very promising field for people who are trying to build on it. So if you were to go into an area where there are very few consultants, very few experts, then AI would be the field, okay? Appreciative inquiry. And then especially for those academicians, those teachers, those professors that are watching this, I would highly recommend you all to look into it, do some work, build on it, and make it your area of interest, your research area, and then eventually you can get to the top very easily. And this talks about positive deviance, okay? How something deviates from the norm and it's positive. So these are individuals who don't believe in mainstream change and new words. This is how they will bring about this change. And then these are mostly a little different, little uncommon, and little behaviorally oriented. So the change is possible here, and this is the key to approach. Some examples I have here. Goldman Sachs used it to transform practice of his investment advisors. So Goldman Sachs is one company who's basically portfolio managers, investment analysts at odd levels, and they have billions and billions of dollars of portfolios that they run for very, very elitist, top, wealthy clients. So that's one area. Finance, HP, they did, and it brought wonders. At another company where the performance went up by 20%. So this is just a note, and there are some very interesting cases that you can read in the education system. There is one very famous case that I read about how the schools or the education management was improved in the Canadian schooling system. To build on it, there is their website, Appreciate Inquiry Comments, for those of you who are interested. These are the 4 stages in AI, okay? These are very lengthy. I just have, a snapshot. It starts from discover, dream, destiny, and design. So you can tell, this is a long project, but you would have to, first of all, here in a snapshot, find out what is working right. Okay. So once you know what strategies work out or what strategies are being uh, profitable, then you would work on those. Okay. And then you would try those and you would implement those. That's how simple it is. It's very, very theoretical. On AI.
Rob and Clint were refining several processes within their company, a large-scale dairy with several cash flow problems. They were stuck and didn't know how to proceed until Rob suggested they use appreciative inquiry to evaluate the success of their suggested solution. Clint agreed, and together they sat down and wrote down the 4 steps of the appreciative inquiry: discover, dream, design, and destiny for their current financial process. They managed to figure out how the new process would succeed and were excited to implement it and improve their profit margin for the coming months. Luckily, using this method allowed Rob and Clint to leave work right on time.
That was the simplest way of presenting
Got it.
appreciative inquiry, but it is more to it. All right, mastering the art of conversation. So now you're getting into an area where you would be more of a media person, where you would be a person who would do the talking. So there is a difference between you presenting, the project as opposed to somebody who's working and executing the project. So here you happen to be on the front end. It's how you would look at it, whether you'd like to be at the back end or you would like to be at the front end. Many people like to be at the back end, and I would like to be on the front end. But what would you need to be at the front end? You would have to know the art of conversation. You would have to be able to master the art of conversation. And this is everything that you have learned that you can utilize here. So when you can get to any conversation, then you have mastered the art of conversation. And to master it, you have to use every trick that we have talked about, every skill that we have talked about is to be used, and every mechanism that we believe in would have to be worked on it. Different ways of getting to the master of conversation. This is not a school where you would get to this level, in order. But you start out with reading. You start out with everything that we did in the last 2 weeks. Everything that you would need to understand, everything that you need to hear, everything that you need to learn from the movies, everything that you need to learn from these videos. Okay, everything knowledge-wise that you need to grab. So all of this comes into the picture. This is a lifelong journey. So if you are used to travel, then you would have to be somehow able to break the ice and talk to the strangers. Of course, the person next to you, in your flight, you would talk to him a little bit, but you would have to really get into a conversation. And sometimes it gives you very, very, helpful information that it could break, the ice and make yourself into a business deal. You could run into a great transaction, find a business partner or your life spouse partner, like I said. So these are all the tricks, and simplified, it's classified in 3 levels. Number 1 is discussing general topic. So whether you're in the flight or in the business meeting, you will start out with small talk. Okay. Weather is a common thing, but it depends. In North America, every person will know what the weather is today. Even a school-going kid in elementary school will not leave for school unless he knows what the weather is today, because the weather changes. But that doesn't happen in other parts of the world. So you want to have to use it accordingly. Sports, it's everywhere. It's omnipresent. Okay, I've seen very, very diehard sports fans in North America as well as in India, but not everyone plays sports. Okay, movies is more of a trend once again in some parts of the world. Okay, but movies also help breaking ice, and of course, book, which is mostly in the academic setting. So you always start out your discussion, keep it general by these topics. Don't jump into the main topic. Then as you move on to level 2, and if you are comfortable with the first part, and if you think the conversation is going, then you would move on, swiftly to sharing ideas and perspective. Okay, this is beyond general talks. And you would have to be able to gauge if the person is comfortable. And then if he's comfortable, then you continue on the conversation. So you are time constant as well as you have various topics to be dealt with. So as your conversation moves into level 2, you're more comfortable and you're holding on to the conversation as a part of mastering the art of conversation. Level 3 is the point where you move up and share even personal levels, okay? Everything that you see on the table can be discussed, not usually appropriate in a social setting. So personal level is about what you have been doing. If you had a vacation in the recent past, you would talk about it. If you have visited a country, you can say that, you know, how I enjoyed going there, how helpful it was, especially if that person is from that area, or if you think there is some common ground. So there's only so much you would reveal in personal, not everything. Okay, so if you struggle to get there, and if you had trouble, you know, you don't have to talk about it. If you had to take out a personal loan to get to this, beautiful place in the middle of nowhere, you don't have to talk about it, but you do say that, you know, I was there casually. So everything is possible, and at level 3, sharing conversation. Next one is our top networking tips. So once you get into business conversation, mastering the art of conversation, then your next goal as a business professional would be to be business savvy, to be able to do some business or transact a business, or if nothing else, at least be able to network for future. If you are trying to break ice, if you are trying to get into a gathering, you have to remember a few things. These are the tips here. So if you're trying to introduce yourself or get into a big event or a very personalized or a very personal or a very elite get together, and if you're late, you do have to remember that, you know, only you know that you are late. Okay, nobody knows or nobody cares. So everyone is as nervous as you are, if that is the case. You know, prepare a great introduction. Okay, the etiquettes of business cards comes into the picture now. I'm not going to talk about it, but you have to learn what the etiquettes of passing out your business cards are. Okay, and then your introduction, trying to mingle as much as possible. Mnemonics are a great way to remember names. So people have difficulty remembering the names. So how would you do it? There are ways of doing it. One is, if a person, you know, has an awesome name, then you try to remember it with something like, you know, if the person's name is Vito, then you will remember it by Vito Corleone. If you all know who Vito Corleone is, the name of the Godfather in the Godfather series. And if there is somebody else with a specific, you know, attitude name, you just try to recall it that way. In the future, at the end, you can write down the names if you'd like. And now we have these smartphones, so it's better to have the name, and in the next field, write down where you met him or what the company name is or what his area of business is, so that way you can recall. Because it's very difficult to remember the names of the people when you have about 1,000 contacts in your contact list. And 1,000 is, you know, a low number. It could be even more than that. All right, so mastering the art of communication.
Vanessa was in the throes of performance anxiety because she'd been tasked with giving a speech at the company function to sum up the year's growth. Haley, her assistant, suggested they practice basic conversation skills to get her into the flow of things, but Vanessa had no clue where to begin. Haley suggested they work through the 3 levels of conversation, and Vanessa agreed. They began with the general conversation topics, progressed to sharing ideas and perspectives, and ended on sharing personal experiences. Vanessa breezed through the communication skills and gained enough confidence to practice and perform her speech. She was happy to talk and proud that she didn't make a fool of herself.
All right, that was a practice to master the art. This doesn't work better with your friends. This works better, you know, with strangers. So if you can get into, you know, initiating a conversation with strangers, do it. That's the best way. And the world is full of strangers, and it's free. So But you can compare this with the STAR acronym that we had looked at on Monday, where you have to make sure that you are in a situation, you have the task and the result. But the art of communication is best practice in real life.
Vanessa.
All right, advanced communication skills. What does advanced refer to here? Nothing more than what you have learned, everything so far. So advanced would involve, some aspect of your emotions, some aspect of your personality, how you would control or modify or have your specific personality, the type of personality you are, in line with your communication. And then the other aspect of emotional intelligence was to be able to control your emotions and also be able to control the other person or be able to understand the other person's emotion. So with this together, you move on to an advanced level of communication. I have the definition here, if you can read it. Okay, I'll read out the advanced form, which is a true art requiring practice, finesse, and a skill that goes beyond those that the average person possesses. So you have learned enough, to move into the area of initiating and holding an advanced communication or advanced conversation. You have everything that you need, at least theoretically. You have to build on it, you have to practice and master it. Some additional tips is to understand what precipitating factors are. In chemistry, you run into a word, precipitate, what comes out. So life is a snowball, as you all can see on the slide. Sometimes you have a good day, sometimes you have a bad day. Okay. So it's always good to say, have a good day. This is a very common, compliment. So say you got up late, your alarm clock didn't go off, which is a normal incident. And then we have learned how to keep our things in control in time and stress. But obviously, we don't pay attention to how much sleep is required. We don't pay attention to what the right diet should be. So we end up, having a bad day by getting up late, trying to trying to eat while you dress and trying to run down, catch the bus, train, or take the ride, and then get in late, skip the breakfast, get to the cafeteria where the line is long. Even the coffee shop has a line going outside the door, so you wouldn't have the time to even grab a cup of coffee. So these are the things that happen, okay? And you have to adjust your approach. And then what's important here is to depersonalize negatives, which means that if you're going through this snowball in your day, during your day, then obviously you're full of negative and you might take it out. So what happens when you take it out? The other person would have to be emotionally strong or to be communication-wise savvy and to be able to understand what is going on based on the approach that we had. So if you're having a bad day, you are radiating, okay? And if the other person, may not be having a bad day and he is observing because you're in a meeting, in a conversation with him. So having a bad day doesn't mean that you would throw everything at him, okay, and make yourself, even worse. But what it means is to be able to understand your own self and for the other person at the receiving end to be able to understand the precipitating factors, what's coming his way, and be able to modify the conversation. So this is what we mean by precipitating factors. And you can be emotionally intelligent in life. You can be empathetic. Empathy plays a big role. And you can word your language, the language needed to be worded the best possible way to make the conversation go. I have here a bit of writing, if you can read it. So when you see there are factors, and when you identify it, you have to adjust their approach before the communication starts. So if you're having a bad day, you would have to adjust the approach, okay? And if you're at the receiving end, you have to depersonalize the negative comments. What it means is you take it less personally. Sometimes the person may be having a really bad day and he may have said something, but if you ignore it, And if you forget it, then the matter is forgotten, is all forgotten because it may not come up at all. So this is how we would be able to depersonalize negative. So you're actually helping the other person move up. You're actually being emotionally intelligent. You're actually being empathetic, okay? And you're also showing sympathy here. And then you're moving up with your business communication, conversation, and you're actually helping the other person. So that's the power of precipitating factors. You would um, work on deregulating it. And then further on, you will try to find some common ground. This is a very, very powerful tool. If you both have something in common, let it be the school. If not school, the city. If not, where you come from. And if not anything, your last name or the first name. These all are very strong tools for building on a stronger relationship. And you have to look for it, okay? Look for it, and you have to, as soon as you find it, you have to say that we have something in common. That makes it. All right, and there's a difference between using I messages and you messages. I don't know if we talked about this in the past, but if you're trying to say that you are snappy or you are sloppy, it's not a good statement. And if you're saying that you are a moron, obviously you will not say it, okay? And then you would probably say that you are too loud. And now that's a negative. There's something being precipitated here. So instead of you can change it to an I message. Very easy to remember, okay? So the I is a very common word these days. So how would you phrase an I message? You can say that instead of you are too loud, you can say, I am having trouble hearing you, okay? And that makes a whole lot of a difference. So I'm sure you all got it. It helps the speaker's feeling. It doesn't put the blame on you, and it doesn't make you look bad. And the purpose is some. All right, you have to have some empathy. Now, if you remember, we talked about empathy much in our EI module. Empathy is something that an empath is a very, very sensitive person, okay? He has a very high regard for his own feelings and for the other feelings. Usually these are the most positively available, in the business world, and they are the people who always would comment positive, and they will never have a negative. And sometimes they are so sensitive to the pain of other people that they cannot control it. So here is where you have to balance. Okay, this is a very important communication skill. It's very underused. Okay, if somebody is empathetic, and then to anything that's going wrong, then you have to regard them, respect their feelings and their initiative. So this is about how to have a successful relationship. It's not an agreement. So you have to put yourself in the other person's shoe when you are being empathetic or when you are an empath. And if you want to understand a person who is an empath, you would have to put yourself in his shoes and try to understand what it means. So this is an aspect of emotional intelligence. You can be emotionally aware by being socially empathetic. And then by being an empath, you are always bringing about or radiating good stuff. So it's not difficult and it's easy. And it's not easy, that's what it means. It's threatening, it's humbling. So sometimes you are exposing yourself too much. And sometimes you're trying to be very humble and taking all the blame and all the scut work. If you remember, we talked about drama queen when we were talking about emotional intelligence. If you all can remember, go back and see how they act and how there are people who always try to belittle you. The other name was aggressors, how they would try to belittle you. And how there will be people who will say that, in my opinion, this is what you should be doing. So those are, the fallbacks. And most importantly, it's the emotional feeling, okay? It's so emotionally related that an empath has to be in a certain way. So this takes us to our last topic, or the highest level of communication, where you are being emotionally intelligent. So by being emotionally aware, emotional intelligence, self-assessed, and self-control, then you are, at the level of mastering the art of communication. Here, physiologically, my body goes into the self-protection mode, and social skills are even more difficult. So when you're experiencing strong emotions in EI, what did we learn? How to, control our emotions, and how to let others not control our emotions. So this is how, you would be able to uh, be an effective communicator, by being emotionally intelligent. If you all can recall, when we talked about uh, your verbal language versus your nonverbal language, and then we had some quasi-verbal, like your expressions, your tone and your voice, the pitch and the speed. And if you can connect those with what we are doing today in advanced communication, you will know that these are nothing but aspects of being emotionally intelligent. Okay. So we touched that in the beginning part, and these are nothing but aspects of being emotionally intelligent, or the mechanics of emotional intelligence. So that's how you would get to it. Get to being an effective communicator, to the advanced level of communication skills, and mastering the art of communication. Some tips: talk less, listen more. We already did that. This is to be emotionally intelligent. Listen to connect. Let the other person speak. Let people know you understand before going. So lastly, we have our EI connection. This is the same quotation definition from Daniel Goleman's very famous book from the 80s, which is, back then it was, but now we have a lot of other, things that, emotional intelligence talks about. And anywhere in the market, when you learn about emotional intelligence, there's no book that talks about having emotional take a systems approach. This is just my personal way of connecting systems thinking based on my understanding of soft systems methodology with emotional intelligence. I'll be coming up with a book on a strategic and a systems approach to emotional intelligence that you all will be having access to soon. But this is just to recap on our definition for EI: recognizing our own feelings and for others, and motivating ourselves, and managing our emotions. This is relating to your art of communication. Now, feelings come in the way of communication, which is once again emotions. When you have strong emotions, you know what to do. Be able to control your volume, your anger with a coworker. And lastly, let's take this.
Roberto and Julio were business partners in a large firm working on a joint venture with another company. They were headed to a meeting with the owners of the potential joint venture company, but Roberto felt ill prepared to speak to complete strangers and shared his concerns with his partner. Julio suggested they use the method of establishing common ground to make everyone more comfortable and that they practice on each other. Roberto and Julio spent the drive over to the building practicing asking questions about where they were from and posing hypothetical answers. Both partners arrived at the meeting prepared to talk confidently with their potential temporary partners and were happy once they secured the joint venture and furthered their own company.
All right, that was another practice session on emotional. But I said they're practicing it among themselves, but the best way to practice is, of course, this may not be the right time in the crisis we're in, but best way to practice is with strangers, okay, or, quasi strangers. And then world is full of strangers, like I said, and it's for free. So start practicing. So that's about it for now. And we have about 10 minutes for questions that you may have. Let me get to, you can take over, Ms. Samira.
Yes, sure, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Shah Sadhisa, for today's session on the topic communication strategies. I'll quickly move on to the question and answer round. So the first question is from Muhammad Yusuf Azam Nadaf. Is there any way we can evaluate Oh, the question is gone. I don't know how. Sorry, I'll take.
Is there a way? I think I read it. Is there a way to evaluate our communication skills? Yes.
Yes.
The purpose of this seminar is for you to be able to evaluate yourself. And what you do is, follow all the notes from the STAR acronym to advanced communication, and try to bring in everything, all the way from open close section, and be able to come up with a communication. It could be a monologue, your own self, in front of yourself or in the mirror or recording it, or a practice session with your friend or your colleague. And you would have to record it. And at the end, when you analyze it, you have to make sure you have all the tricks of the trade, starting from your verbal to non-verbal, quasi-verbal, all the STAR acronym aspect of the communication, and all the way with interviewing questions, probing questions, small talk, and then get to the last level. So this is how you would evaluate, and then the best way would be, like I said, keep doing this as a practice every day, all day, all the time, all the way. So that way you will get to it. It would be a matter of time, months or maybe years, but continue on and make it a practice. All right, next.
The next question is from Miss Indira Srinivas. Is artificial intelligence AI helps in only business communication or also in education? Kindly clarify.
Well, I don't talk about artificial intelligence. Okay, I only talk about emotional intelligence or appreciative inquiry. I don't know if you're referring to that. Artificial
I
intelligence is
think
not
she's
my
referring
area.
to the she's referring to the emotional intelligence, I guess.
No, emotional intelligence helps you all the way in your life, at every aspect of your life, not business, but social. Okay. There are the stats that 95% of marriages fail because because you lack the communication needed. So I don't have to say much. It helps you. You need to be, having a personal, successful life, then the business. So it helps everywhere. It's the most important thing.
Okay,
Next.
we just got her this thing clarification. She meant appreciative inquiry.
Okay. Appreciative inquiry is for business. Okay. It's like, how you bring about a change using a branch of science like business process reengineering and whatever solutions are in the market. So it's for business.
All right. So the next question is from some anonymous attendee. He says, I'm a final year civil engineering student. Which skills and how to prepare interview for MNC? Suggest books and skills.
Well, it depends on where the interviewee is. In an interview, usually the interviewer never asks about your technical skills. So for an engineering student, he should just be able to technically, from an HR's perspective, he should just see your grade sheet, your grade, and be happy with that. But if they're asking you technical questions, then that's your technical knowledge. But that's the wrong way to go. And then the right way to go is to ask you general things, which are nothing but soft skills. So there is a book called What Color is Your Parachute that I have talked about, that you would have to read about how to perform the interview. And there may be many other books that you can read to be well prepared for interviewing skills. But rest is assured, if you have the soft skills that we have been going on, okay? So soft skills is what is needed. Make sure that you do some small talk when the interview starts and so forth. Next.
Okay. The next question is from Usman Khan. He says, is emotional intelligence an umbrella term for other skills like empathy?
Well, emotional intelligence is an umbrella term for self-assessment, self-management, and self-control. Okay, empathy is a part of emotional intelligence. An empath is a person who has certain emotions, that may be good or bad, but it's a general term as opposed to sympathy, which is specific. So emotional intelligence only covers emotions. It's not an umbrella term for the entire business skills that you need, but it's an important area that you need to build on, that you need to understand. Next.
Okay. The next question is from Ruxana Anjun. She says, arguments and unsettled work environment may create discomfort. How to handle your peers in such a situation?
Well, one requirement for effective communication is to be having a conducive environment. So you have to avoid that. If there is somebody talking to you in the hallway, or then you have to say that, why don't you come to my cubicle or my room where we can hear better? So there are different ways of making the environment conducive. And if you're not comfortable, don't initiate the environment. If you're busy, don't take the phone call. And if you think the meeting is in a bad location, just say we cannot have it here. But it's very important that you have the privacy that you need, the respect that that you have earned, and the social settings, the physical environment that you need for the communication to be effective. So don't take the call if you're not comfortable. Next.
All right. So the next question is how to prepare for IELTS. Can we just prepare from books? Please suggest.
You can prepare from books, of course. You can prepare your own self. If you're not willing to spend money, if you're willing to spend money, then you can go attend a session. But the best way would be to start. Everything is available online. Read the books, the famous authors, and then take the online test if it's available. And then if you want to further build on it, then you can spend some money and go for a session. And then most importantly, converts. But if you have some British native speakers, that will help you a lot in understanding things. So you have to build vocabulary, which you have to do it yourself. Only you can work on it and improve it. All right. Anybody else?
So the next question is from Samina Nabi. When we are hurt by someone's words, it is very difficult to control emotions, and words come out from our side, like harshful words do come out from our side, which we don't want. How to control these? Please suggest.
Okay. See, when the words are out, there is no stop. It gets pierced. So that's what emotional intelligence is about. How to control your emotions. If the other person is being emotionally ignorant, and if he's throwing words, then you have to understand how to manage. You have to debunk these negative emotions, and somehow you have to manage. The best way would be to disappear. Make an excuse and leave, and come back later, and things will be gone. But if you are the person who's at the source, if you cannot manage your emotions, and then if you are throwing in bad words, then you have to be emotionally intelligent and have control. So I think you need to redo the emotional module again, read it. There are many books available on the internet that you can read and that you can practice. And if you start reading, you will recall how you would have to, in a particular situation, manage your emotions. So it will pop up in your mind that, oh, I'm doing it. What I'm doing is wrong. I should. So if you're at the receiving end, I would say just disappear. That's better than, that's less rude than taking the words and replying back in a wrong way. Okay.
Okay. So the last question will be, because it is somehow very common. Few people, they have asked that they have difficulty in communicating with strangers. They have stage fears or something like that. So how to overcome these kind of issues?
Well, this is very basic. You have to learn how to talk to strangers. See, the best part about talking to strangers is they don't know you, and then you don't have to feel insulted. And then the other way of looking at it, if you happen to be visiting a new city, a new place, then you know that there is nobody who knows you over there. Okay. So the fear will be gone. So the same way, the same technique will apply with strangers. You go to a remote area, or you go to a stranger, and he doesn't know you. So even if you miss something, or if you feel humiliated, there is nothing there to haunt you in the future. So like I said, strangers are ample and they are free. Use them. That's how you would start. Don't use your own people to build on your communication skills.
Okay. So this is it. We are done with the communication. We are done with the Q&A round. I will just ask Saeed Bhai to take 2 minutes to 3 minutes to talk about LMS, if in case he wants to. Then we will proceed to the closing.
Sure. Thank you.
Over to you, Said Zaid.
Yeah, thank you, Humera. Thank you, Shazab, for that inspiring session again. It's always a pleasure, to listen to you. Yeah. So one common question that I saw in today's chat window is that people are still asking, like, how do we enroll for the past course that is in business writing? But then business writing was open for like good 10 days. We gave a grace period of 3 days as well. Now the course is closed, but we see that, a lot of people haven't taken their assessment. So we are going to open up the assessment for business writing, which is mandatory for the certification. So that will be available for you to take it up. But the second course, the communication strategies, for this week, that is already uploaded along with the assessment as well. So as I said, in the beginning of the session, I would request that all of you just enroll. If you're already enrolled, you can use the same email ID and password that you have from the last time, and then you can just log in into the LMS. The link has already been given to you. If there are any further questions, we are available here, for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Said Saab. And thank you so much, Mr. Shah Siddiqui Saab, for today's session on the topic communication strategies. Your sessions are so full of information and valuable knowledge. These sessions are such a rare combination of best skills and examples. Listening to you is so delightful too. It is difficult to get to learn from such an expert like you in these tough times of COVID-19. So today we are done with our second module, Alhamdulillah. It is very important to understand and learn the power of a good communication. Without these skills, we feel so lagged in our lives and careers. So this is a way we can build trust, inspire, and lead effectively. I'm sure through these sessions, which AMP has organized in collaboration with the Read Academy and Swift e-learning services to benefit the youth of the society and nation as a whole, we all will be able to develop a good and an effective communication skill. To all the attendees, it was a great experience to have you all on board today. We will be starting our third module next week. The topic is business acumen. We will meet on 13th July 2020, which is Monday at the same time, 7:30 p.m. IST. Don't forget to join us and learn from our highly qualified and expert speaker, Mr. Shah Siddiqui Sahab. You can always spread our word about us and our sessions if you have liked us. Keep yourself updated through our website, www.ampindia.org/pastwebtalks. If you want to join us, kindly visit www.ampindia.org/joinamp. Looking forward to seeing you all again on coming Monday, that is 13 July at 7:30 p.m. for our next session. In case you have any queries, you can always write us at info@ampusa.org. I'm Humera signing off now. Thank you.